She almost didn't open it. The file had been sitting in the shared drive for weeks, mislabeled, ignored. But on a slow Thursday afternoon in November, she clicked. And in the next 4 minutes, she read something that would cost her job, her peace of mind, and ultimately earn her one of the largest whistleblower payouts in the state's history. Sandra Chen had worked as a billing coordinator at a regional hospital network for 9 years. Her job was precise, unglamorous, and deeply important. She made sure insurance claims were coded correctly before they were submitted. Errors cost the hospital money. Intentional errors were something else entirely. And what she found in that mislabeled file was not an error. The hospital network had a contract with the Department of Veterans Affairs to provide specialty care to veterans who couldn't access VA facilities. A good program, an important one. But for at least 3 years, the network had been submitting claims to the VA for procedures that were either never performed by physicians who were not credentialed for those services, or billed at rates that had been fraudulently inflated. Sandra ran the numbers. She ran them again. She cross-referenced them with patient records she had access to. The discrepancy was not a rounding error. It was $12.7 million. Now here's the part of this story that most people don't understand, because most people have never needed to. Sandra had stumbled into a legal category that gives ordinary citizens extraordinary power, and she had no idea it existed. Until her brother-in-law, a paralegal, told her about something called the False Claims Act. Healthcare fraud against the federal government, specifically Medicare, Medicaid, and the Veterans Affairs system, is one of the most prosecuted categories under the False Claims Act. Why? Because the dollar amounts are enormous, because the harm is direct, and because the government simply does not have the manpower to audit every hospital, every clinic, every billing department in the country. That's where people like Sandra come in. Insiders, the ones who actually see the numbers. Sandra filed her qui tam lawsuit in January of the following year, under seal. Her employer had no idea, and for 8 months she showed up to work every single day, sat 3 desks away from the CFO she had just secretly reported to the federal government, and did her job. What happened in month 9 is something she says she will never forget. In September, Sandra was called into a meeting with HR and her direct supervisor. Her performance, they said, had been declining. There were concerns about her accuracy, her attention to detail. There would be a formal review. Sandra knew exactly what this was. She had seen it before. Employees who asked too many questions, who pushed back too hard, who noticed things they weren't supposed to notice. She documented every interaction, every email, every comment made in passing. Her attorney had told her, write everything down, date it, save it. She did. What the hospital's legal team had not accounted for was this. Federal whistleblower retaliation law doesn't just protect you from being fired. It protects you from being demoted, harassed, investigated, or treated in any way that would discourage a reasonable person from reporting fraud. Every meeting Sandra had been called into was now evidence. Every critical email was Exhibit A. The Department of Justice intervened in Sandra's case in February of the following year. Their investigators had found the fraud extended even further than Sandra had documented, affecting not just VA billing, but Medicare claims going back 5 years. Total fraudulent billing, $31.4 million. The hospital network agreed to settle for $31.4 million. No admission of wrongdoing. That's standard in these cases. But the CFO, who had personally approved the billing procedures, was barred from participating in federal health care programs for 7 years. 2 executives resigned before the settlement was finalized, and Sandra received 17% of the government's recovery, $5.3 million, plus a separate $680,000 judgment for the retaliation she had experienced. Here is the number that matters most from this story. Since 1986, more than 70% of all False Claims Act recoveries have come from healthcare fraud. Not defense contractors, not tech companies, healthcare. Which means if you work in a hospital, a clinic, a pharmacy, a medical billing company, The odds that you are sitting near information that qualifies for this law are higher than almost any other industry. Sandra didn't set out to become a millionaire. She set out to fix a spreadsheet. But the law rewarded her for doing the right thing in a way that changed her family's life permanently. She now works as a compliance consultant, helping healthcare organizations avoid the kind of fraud she once uncovered. She says the most common thing she hears from people in billing departments is, "I thought something was wrong, but I didn't think it was my place to say anything." It is your place. There is a law that says so, and it will pay you for it. If you work in healthcare and want to know exactly what qualifies under the False Claims Act, what the reporting process looks like, and what protections you have, watch the next video. Everything you need to know is there.